everyone to this webinar on how to determine pricing in pediatric DPC. I decided to put this webinar together because this is one of the most commonly asked questions in the DPC Facebook groups that I've been part of for the last 2 to 3 years. It gets asked in different ways over and over again, and I can understand why, because when I was starting my own DPC I decided to start it 2.5 years ago, but I've had my doors open for 2 years now in Salt Lake City, Utah. I wondered the same thing, and I went looking for answers. I bought a couple of DPC books, which were written by family medicine doctors, and they gave me some guidance, but it still felt a little bit confusing because these weren't pediatricians, and sometimes the advice could be a little bit general. So in this webinar, I've tried to put together some examples of budgets, starting from like a smaller practice to a larger team-based practice, so that you can really look at what the numbers might look like for you and get a starting idea of what your budget will be, and therefore what your pricing should be in your own pediatric DPC. I am recently taking a business class through Goldman Sachs. It's called 10,000 Small Businesses. And one of the points that someone made recently in one of the classes was that one of the most common reasons businesses fail is because they don't look closely enough at their numbers, like looking at those cash flow statements and those budgets and the day-to-day flow of money, what's coming in and what's coming out. And so because they don't look closely enough at those numbers, they don't realize what they actually need to charge in order to be successful. So not just DPC practices, but businesses throughout the country are undercharging. And you really need to understand what it costs to run a business in order to understand what you should be charging. Now, one of the things that I struggled with when I was opening my DPC or thinking about it was, lacking the confidence that I could do this. We have all been trained to be excellent clinicians, excellent physicians, but we have not necessarily been trained to run a business. I mean, most of us know little to nothing about the ins and outs of running a business, and that's not our fault. It's because all of our attention and training was toward something different, toward clinical care, and that's what we got really good at. However, something that someone told me when I was starting out, or that I read somewhere, was that, look, if Joe down the street can own a bike shop, and John down the street can own a taco shop, and Sarah down the street can own a beauty salon, you, as a highly intelligent, highly skilled, and capable physician, can own a successful practice. So that's just one of those things that really kind of hit home to me. I was like, yeah, look at all these businesses in my city. Look at all these people owning businesses and figuring out how to run their business. If they can do it, so can I, right? And I want to say that to any pediatrician watching this. If they can do it, so can you. It's just a matter of learning a few extra skills, and you don't have to learn it all at once. You just learn one thing at a time. I love what Dr. Una says. If you don't know Dr. Una, she has a lot of podcasts, and she has a book called, I think, The Entree MD Method. And she says this in one of her books and in some of her podcasts. She says, all business skills are learnable. And that is very, very true. So this is just one of those business skills that you will need to learn in order to have a successful practice. Now, I should mention that pricing is just the first step of the process. Getting comfortable asking for money will be the next. And that's another thing that as physicians, we have not necessarily had to do. We always said, talk to the billing department, talk to the front desk. Money is not my department. I'm your physician, your clinician. I will write the prescriptions. I will examine you. I will write the notes, but I don't really know about money. That was definitely how I felt in the fee-for-service clinical world. So, but again, pricing is the first step, and that's what we're going to focus on today. All right. I'm going to show you a sample budget A. Here we go. And this is a scenario with someone who is starting their peds DPC and has decided that they do not want a physical location. They could be doing that only temporarily, or they could be doing that as just a plan for their practice. But this scenario is really looking at someone who is doing home visits only. Okay. Now, please note that on all of these sample budgets that I have today, I do not include startup costs. Startup costs will be a separate webinar next month, and hopefully we will develop some sort of tool that you can use online via the website for how to calculate your own startup costs, because they are highly, highly variable.